Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad Tehami. In today's show, we'll be trying to find an answer to a very burning question, a pressing issue. Is India truly a democracy? We'll be trying to find the answer of these questions in the light of the developments that have been going on within India, especially Indian authorities' treatment towards minorities, particularly Muslims, and its attitude in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Now, there are many international organizations and bodies that have repeatedly been raising concern and alarm over the deteriorating human rights situation within India, as well as in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, especially since 2014 when BJP, Bharatiya Janata Party, led by the incumbent Prime Minister Narendra Modi, came into power, twice elected back in 2019. Now, when such an alarm is raised and such human rights violations are highlighted at the international fora, what Indian authorities resort to? They resort to stifling criticism, and they want to crush the freedom of expression and opinion. The glaring example of this is the release of the BBC investigative documentary and the kind of aggressive reaction that came to the fore from the Indian authorities. First, they tried to brand BBC of having bias and this particular investigative documentary lacking objectivity. This particular investigative documentary, as BBC says, is rigorously researched, and it holds the incumbent Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who was the Chief Minister of the Gujarat state in 2002, where the massacre happened and over 1,000 people lost their lives, the majority of which were Muslims. This investigative documentary holds the Prime Minister himself directly responsible for that massacre. Then what the Indian authorities later on did, they tried to block the sharing of the clips on YouTube, Twitter, and other social media platforms. Not only this, they've also launched a crackdown against the defiant students who are adamant to screen this documentary at various top-notch universities within India. Now, the question arises now, if there is nothing that the Indian authorities have done, especially when it comes to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, vis-a-vis the Gujarat 2002 riots and the subsequent massacre, what Indian authorities are so afraid of? And what is in this documentary that, if the world knows, would be detrimental to the existence of Bharatiya Janata Party and its political stake within the country? And we'll be looking into this. Has the damage already been done? And if so, what this high-handedness of the Indian authorities is going to do? Is it going to expose Indian Hindutva design and agenda more to the world? And if India claims itself to be truly a democratic state, shouldn't it allow the people to watch the documentary and decide by themselves and form their opinion about whatever the claims have been made in this documentary? And there had been repeated alarms and concerns by the international organizations as well as bodies. So if India is truly a democratic state and believes in international norms, so why shouldn't it give heed to those calls by the international organizations and try to correct its behavior? And if this behavior continues, how detrimental it is going to be for BJP's existence in the mainstream politics within India, and what sort of an impact it would have on the so-called economic might India has developed over the years. And if this behavior continues, will it lead to the burst of this economic bubble in a society which is already imploding? Now, when we talk about, there is another yardstick on which we can judge whether India is truly a democracy or not. That is the question of Kashmir. Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The illegal occupation and subsequent unilateral annexation, heavy deployment of military forces over there, and a continuous, complete communication blackout. There had been repeated calls by the international organizations regarding this one as well, but they have fallen on the deaf ears of the Indian authorities. Now, today, the Indians are observing the Republic Day, which is being observed as a black day by the innocent people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Now, what happens to be the role of international community in this regard when there's so much concern which has been raised by so many human rights organizations and other bodies? We'll be trying to find out the question of this, that India is it really a democracy? We are honored to have been joined in the studio by Mr. Dr. Tughral Yamin. He's senior analyst. Dr. Yamin, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. And we are also honored to have been joined in the studio by Dr. Amna Mehmood. She's expert foreign affairs. Dr. Amna, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. And let me begin the discussion with you, Dr. Yamin. Now, this documentary, why are the Indian authorities, especially the Prime Minister, so afraid of it? Why are they not letting it to be spread? If they haven't done anything wrong, so if they claim that they are the truly representative of a democratic state, they should let it be screened and people watch it and make their own opinion. Isn't that so?
No, you're quite right. But the point is that Modi is known as the butcher of Gujarat, and the massacre did happen under his watch. And there's no doubt about it that he was denied visa even by the United States of America for what? For his ill treatment of his electorate in his constituency, Gujarat. So there's no doubt that he committed all these crimes against humanity. But the fact of the matter is he did become Prime Minister not once, he became Prime Minister twice, and he may become Prime Minister thrice. So
do you really think he may become Prime Minister thrice after so much has been exposed now, until now? After the two stints of BJP?
He will. What stops it from him becoming the Prime Minister? His country is doing well. They are economically growing. They are powerful. The world listens to them. He's chairmaning the G20 group. He's much sought after. He buys weapons from all over the world. What stops from him becoming the three-time Prime Minister? I don't think there is any reason for him not becoming a Prime Minister again, irrespective of the fact that what he has done against his own people. No, I don't think.
This current documentary that we are discussing now about, it comes from one of the most credible media organizations in the world, and they have also defended that it is rigorously researched. There is also a classified inquiry that happened from the Foreign Office of the UK also, that has also been incorporated in this particular thing. So after that, don't you think the kind of role Indian Prime Minister during Gujarat riots played, that has come to the fore, that's why they are so much afraid, they are not letting it to be screened?
You're right that they don't want it to be screened, but that doesn't mean that he will not get elected. You see, the kind of atrocities that the Israelis are committing against Palestinians, Netanyahu is still again back in power. Don't we know whatever he has done against the Palestinians? He's still doing it. He's still killing people. So these kind of murderers or butchers who kill their own people, they get away with murder. They get elected again and again and again because their electorate, which in case of Israel is overwhelmingly Jewish, and in case of India, it's overwhelmingly Hindu. So they'll elect him again. It doesn't bother them very much if they're killing Muslims.
So why there is so much hue and cry about this?
Where is the hue and cry? Only in Pakistan?
No, this particular thing, this documentary, what they want to hide.
Where is the hue
and cry? Because they want to hide it by any means. They're trying to block it. The sharing of the clips on the social media. They don't allow the defined students to screen it in the university also.
You're absolutely right. Students in university will watch it. Students in university will raise a hue and cry against it. Professors will also talk about it. But the general electorate, the common man, the citizen, he is not bothered. For him, if he gets his 3 squares meals a day, or if he has got roof over his head, and if he has got other things coming his way or her way, why should he comment on something which happened in Gujarat against Muslims, which in any case,
because Muslims happen to be the largest minority within India, huge chunk of population over there.
My dear, minority. They're in minority.
Over 200 million.
Right, but it doesn't.
Head count is a phenomenal one. Let me bring in Dr. Amna Mehmood into the discussion also.
Sure.
What is that thing the Indian authorities are so afraid of, that they're trying to block the sharing of every clip that is associated with this documentary, and they're not also allowing the defiant students screen it in the universities also. So there must be something very difficult for them to handle.
I think that the difference is, as Dr. Tughral pointed out, difference is between masses and the university literates. You know, you have seen that when Citizen Act was introduced in India, there was a reaction in universities. Students were showing solidarity with their Muslim class fellows, Muslim professors, and they were demonstrating, but they were ill-treated by the authorities in the same way as they have been doing as you mentioned, in Gujarat. But the masses are totally different, and it is not the world, it is the electorate of India who have to elect Mr. Modi again. And since they have been working on their electorate for a long, RSS agenda was there, and it was working from the very beginning of 1947 onwards. And they have created a scenario that India is for Hindus, that is not for all. And minorities have to be subordinate or subjugated according to what they have been dictated by the majority. So it is not possible to defeat India with such documentaries. You know, such clips and such other phenomenal reports were already there. But he was elected as Prime Minister of India since he was, it was not declared by Pakistan, it was declared by international media as Butcher of Gujarat. But despite all that, he was elected once, twice. And in democracy, certainly Indian masses are looking towards the might of India. That is because of Mr. Modi. Though they have forgotten that this status of India is because of the economic power and economic rise, is because of Congress rule, twice Congress rules by Manmohan Singh, because he was an economist and he raised the economy to the level Mr. Modi inherited. But still that boom is going on, and the whole world is looking towards Mr. Modi because he has been joined in AUKUS, Quad, and you know, they are now they have declared in Asia Pacific as Indo-Pacific. So India, such movies, such documentaries cannot change the mindset of Indian masses. They are looking Mr. Modi with their eye that Mr. Modi is responsible for, you know, the rise of India as, as a great regional power.
Right. Let me proceed with the discussion. We are honored and privileged to have been joined in the studio by Ms. Mushaal Hussein Malik, Chairperson, Peace and Culture Organization. She's the wife of the imprisoned Kashmiri leader Mohammad Yasin Malik as well. Ms. Malik, thank you very much for joining us at Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. Now, we'll be talking about what is happening within the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, as they observe today as a Black Day, when India is observing its 74th Republic Day. Now, let me first begin with the documentary, the investigative documentary that is released by one of the most credible media organizations in the world, BBC, that is based on rigorous research. Do you think it has cast a huge dent on the narrative of Indian leaders, particularly belonging to BJP, of their claim of being the manifestation of the phenomenon that we know as democracy?
I think it is a very strong and very powerful proof, research, and coming from such an authentic media house, globally recognized, with all the details, with all the horrific incidents being mentioned, and with proofs. I think it makes the case of Kashmiris and of the minorities even stronger, especially when it comes to the case of genocide. As Professor Stanton, who's the founder of the International Criminal Ad Hoc Tribunals for Rwanda, for Yugoslavia, I think this strengthens our case internationally, and I think it's high time that the world should take notice of these war crimes and how they are eliminating and targeting the minorities, forced conversions of Christians, Dalits, and how they are, you know, killing Muslims. And then we've seen a series of terrorist activities being conducted by the RSS in the past, and RSS itself was involved in one of the biggest genocides of South Asia in 1947. Over 5 lakh Jammu Muslims were slaughtered, beheaded, and Mecca bombings, bombing of churches. And then, yes, right now for the past 13 years they've been working on atomic bomb the RSS. So it's very dangerous at the space at which they're heading. For them, it's all about cashing more on the Hindutva vote, but they don't. But they're not thinking that what impact it can have, not just in the region, but internally also, the kind of civil war. So until and unless it's not challenged under international universal jurisdiction and not held accountable in International Court of Justice, I think we can take this movie there. And what they've done in Kashmir files recently, the main target was to blame the Kashmiri leadership, especially my husband Muhammad Yasin Malik, that they're responsible for the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits. In fact, in reality, it was the RSS BJP governor Jagmohan in the early 90s who was responsible for that. But this kind of negative propaganda, which was rejected by the jury head, international jury head, who's an Israeli, who rejected that propagandistic movie. But I think BBC report is a breath of fresh air. It's credible, and it's exposing the mindset of the RSS to the world once again, because sadly it's a tragedy that right after 5th of August we saw a global uproar against whatever India did, that lawfare. But then after a few months, when the momentum was rising, suddenly the whole world had focus shifted towards Corona and lockdown, so we could not engage the global powers and the global public. But I think now it's the ideal time to push it, to take it forward, and then we've had the Universal Periodic Table review also by the United Nations recently. So it's very important that we place very sharply, we're well prepared, and take it towards international corridors.
So both of participants earlier said no matter how many such type of revelations are made, he is still going to get elected as the Prime Minister. Do you agree with this particular thing?
Even if he does get elected, we've seen in the past the Disinfo Lab scam that took place, the negative propaganda, and we've observed that the RSS phenomena has been spreading internationally through its sister organization like HSS, and there are many individual incidents of Kashmiri diaspora living in the West, living in Canada, America and Europe and other places, that if they ever come out, they are harassed by the radical mindset RSS, HSS followers, and that radicalization, that terrorist mindset, that extremism is not just within India or within Kashmir, it's going global, and this needs to be stopped. This is really a global threat for the world, and I think even if they win their votes over there, let them win. But do you think, like any rational mind, especially for a foreigner investing billions of dollars over there, do you think their business is going to be safe and secure in the next few years when there's so much of intolerance in the society, when you've sown the seeds of saffronization? They're not even tolerating minorities and people of other religions and then of other races, other nations, other colors. Do you think they would not target them? And we're seeing a lot of foreigners being attacked, being raped there, and it's not being reported the way it should, because it's a Godi media over there, which is a complete blanket ban on any kind of information, and then there's a ban on this latest Gujarat report that's come from the BBC, and students are being charged with sedation, and what is alarming is that there's so many cases, thousands of sedation cases against Kashmiris, Kashmiri leadership, and also all those sane voices within India that speak up or challenge this fascist policies. But these sedation charges, these laws, they stand invalid. They are of 1860, of the colonial British era, which stand nullified in Britain, and even their own 1950 constitution and 1978 constitution, that also nullifies all those, but yet those invalid laws are being imposed on these young students today, on everybody who voices against the Modi regime.
Right, as Ms. Malik has pertinently mentioned a very important and significant point when it comes to the question of security and safety of the personnel that are associated with the foreign companies and the foreign investment coming into India. So when we often talk about that bubble of the economic might of India currently, now when is it going to be sustainable with such a huge polarization that is becoming rampant with every single passing day?
It's sustainable, unfortunately. You see, world is commemorating the Holocaust Day. I think it was yesterday. Why are they doing that? Because Jews are powerful, they have money. UAE has started, it will be introducing this teaching of Holocaust in their school syllabus. UAE, it's a Muslim country. Why?
But don't you think this is the time when there's so much alarm? There is a
it's-
correlation
Jawad
between what
Saab,
was
Jawad-
done
Jawad
to a
Saab,
certain
Jawad
religious...
Saab, Jawad Saab, please listen to me. It's not what I think or what Ms. Mushaal thinks or what Dr. Amna thinks. All of us are on one page. We think that brutalities are being committed in Kashmir in particular. Women are being raped, pellet guns are being used, people are being disfigured. But the world is not listening to you because you are not powerful.
So hasn't the world learnt its lessons?
No,
Because
no, my
after,
dear,
after
no,
in
no,
the wake
no,
of
no,
World War
no,
II,
no, no,
the
no,
kind
no,
of
no, no, no,
atrocities
no, no,
which were
no,
committed
no, no,
against
no,
a certain
no,
religious
no,
community
no,
within
no, no,
Nazi
no,
Germany,
no.
there is a huge
No,
correlation.
nobody listens. I think that's why Netanyahu is back in power. You see, Netanyahu is also a butcher of Palestinian people. Who cares? Nobody cares because everybody has his own national interest to pursue. We are worried. We are aggrieved. Her husband is in prison for such a long time. Brutalities are being committed against him. He is being tortured. We are all very, very perturbed because of that. But world at large, world doesn't care because you are a poor country. You don't have any strong influences in the international politics. Even your Arab brothers do not support you when Kashmir comes into play. So unless, my dear, you become a powerful country, nobody is going to listen to your narrative. That is the unfortunate tragedy. That is what is happening in the world today.
What I understand from your take is that economy
absolutely.
matters the most as compared to human life, dignity and respect.
Unfortunately.
Dr. Amna Mehmood, now the Charter of the United Nations, subsequent Universal Declaration of Human Rights, what happened to a certain religious community in Nazi Germany? So there is a stark correlation between what happened that time in the World War II and now what is being perpetrated by Indian authorities and their forces, not only within India but also in IIOJK. So don't you think that the international community hasn't learned the lesson from the past?
No, you are very right, but at the same time, there are debates in Europe as well that what has been done with Nazis by Hitler, they are doing the same with Palestinian people. But why you are not raising voice? Such voices were there in Parliament of Norway, of Sweden, and in Parliament of Scotland, that what they are doing. But these are just voices, and their own countries are not imposing any sort of economic sanctions, or they are not stopping relationship with either India or Israel. And I think that as Ms. Malik mentioned that there was, false information network, etc., that is exposed. What measures taken by European Union against that? There was no pertinent measure taken to stop that. And same is the case with such report. I think that being the student of international politics, which we both are, that such moves are, such documentaries and such reports are actually the pressure points to bargain on certain interest these powers want to. Otherwise, there is no concrete action coming out. At the time of Modi's election as Prime Minister, everybody was knowing that he was butcher of Gujarat, but he was taken, and then those all powers imposed sanction on his international travel. They opened those.
Dr. Amna Mehmood, you use this particular term, pressure points. Would you like to shed a little bit more light on this particular thing?
Because there should be some bargaining agenda and bargaining point. India is much resistant than Pakistan to abide by their rules while collaborating with them. So there should be some point that on which Mr. Modi has to stop. And by the way, we are talking about minorities, and Ms. Malik very rightly pointed out that there would be a fragmented society and there would be security threat. But despite all that, Mr. Modi is going on the agenda where all the minorities would be repressed to the point that they would be having no voice in India, and there would be no security threat. That's why they are not only marginalizing Muslims, but all other minorities. And on a very lighter note, you see that Ms. Priyanka Gandhi, she has converted to Buddhism, and she is a practicing Buddhist, being the descendant of Nehru family. It means that they are also fed up from Hinduism, and they are fundamentalism and their agenda. It means that India is going to be, Modi is working on one point agenda, that India is for Hindus. So they have started come back home, movement, that everyone who is converted from Hinduism should come back to Hinduism, or otherwise they should leave India. That is, the Citizenship Act says.
Right. And now, when we talk about this thing that you've already used, pressure points, does it mean twisting arms of Indian authorities to get something done of their own wish, major world powers?
I think that would not come to that point, because India is already cooperating with them, and they are being used.
You already mentioned that India happens to be resistant.
Yeah, they happen to be resistant. You see that in Ukraine crisis, they did not stand with the United States, with the European Union. They continued.
Do you connect? Does it have to do anything with India's resistance when it comes to the Ukraine and Russia conflict?
Yeah, they were not persecuted. They were not penalized, as Pakistan was stopped from buying, oil from Russia. But they were not penalized for that, because India knows how to use these points for bargaining.
Right. Let me bring in Ms. Malik also. Do you agree with Dr. Amna Mehmood, these pressure points?
I agree with both the panelists, because it's very important when we look at Kashmir from the global international perspective, because it is basically a global village, this world. But then I think if Pakistan is a weak economy, there's a lot of chaos within Pakistan politically. I mean, they're not all working together. I mean, every political party talks about Kashmir, but practically we're on the basic rhetorics, and we're not taking any practical steps. We've still not nominated.
But Ms. Malik, don't you think Pakistan has been continuously supporting
my
the
tempo
Kashmir?
will be, if you don't mind kindly. So we need more unity within Pakistan, regardless of what school of thought. I respect all of them, but I have addressed this. I have suggested the Pakistani regime, even at the time of 5th of August, that it's high time that now all the internal national politics should be set aside, and our entire focus should be on, having a Kashmir emergency policy, at least for 5 to 10 years, and, just forget about bilateralism with India, because for 50 years we've done that, wasted time, and in that meantime, India has, increased its occupation over there. 10 lakh Indian occupational forces, now 50 lakh Indian public have come there like occupiers. They have violated Geneva Convention Article 32. They came as administrators, they became occupiers, and now the public is also there. And then the kind of draconian laws that we have over there, like UPA, TADA, POTA, Armed Forces Special Powers Act, they all give immunity. So what is the way forward? So the way forward is that we take the case internationally to the Security Council. It's a violation of Geneva Convention, and I think it's very important to have a lawfare team of international law experts for Pakistan, and they should be. It's high time. I've been saying this for the past 4 years, that the Foreign Office should have a legal cell with experts. If we don't have those experts from Pakistan, we should hire services from abroad, and they can take my case abroad as well. I'm a Pakistani, first Pakistani public figure, married to a Kashmiri leader. The way they took Kulbhushan's case, the Indians of a terrorist, their wife and his mother, to ICJ. Okay, if they don't want to take it to ICJ, there are many other international tribunals where you can take individual cases and take our case forward. And secondly, it's very important to tell the world, okay, if Pakistan's a weak economy, then I think we're at a cliffhanger situation. We're heading towards that climax, because India is so bloodthirsty. It's in that land grabbing mood of Akhand Bharat. And now the next step, if they don't stop them here, they're going to go to AJK, they're going to go further to GB. And I think maybe the world is waiting for that button to be clicked by the RSS terrorist Modi, the way we witnessed on 27th of February. 2019, how nuclear codes were exchanged. If nobody stops, I think the world is ready to eliminate the world to the future, God forbid, the public. So I think the ramifications, the nuclear impacts or the security concerns have nothing to do with Pakistan, because the weaker the Pakistan becomes economically, the chances of Indian aggression, they become skyrocketed. So I think it's in the global economic and security concerns, I think it's very important that the world should take charge and stop India and hold it accountable.
Right. Dr. Yamin, when we talk about the political stability in any specific country, we have seen there been a lot going on in various parts of the country, even in the major world powers. We have seen the capital rights in the US also. There's been a lot of conflict within the political parties in other major world powers also. So does it have to deal with an international issue, whether there is political uncertainty or if Pakistan has economic difficulties at this moment? So that shouldn't be a concern for the international community. It should be focusing on what India is doing within India to minorities and to people in IIOJK.
See, I think he made a very powerful statement. The world does not bother what is happening if you are fighting amongst yourself. We are fighting amongst ourselves.
Don't political parties in the countries
listen,
fight?
Please listen to me. She made a very powerful statement. We ought to have a proper Kashmir policy. We don't have a Kashmir policy. We talk one thing at one time, we talk the other thing at the next moment. Prime Minister went to UAE and he said that he will be very thankful, he would be very glad if UAE brought the Indians to the negotiating table for Kashmir. And then the Prime Minister office made a clarification that no, we will be only willing to talk to them once they undo the 5th of August 2019 act of usurping Kashmir and making it a union territory. And what she said about the nuclear button, I think that's also very important. You see, those are issues which you can highlight. We came very near to pressing the nuclear button, and it has come out in Pompeo's book. He said that he talked to the Indians, and the Indians actually talked to him, and then he talked to General Bajwa that this should not happen. So Kashmir is a nuclear flashpoint. The world is not bothered about Modi. Modi is a transitional phenomena. He would be here. He's in his mid-70s. He might be there for another 5 years or 2 years or 3 years. I do not know how long would he live. But once he is gone, do you think there would somebody would come and suddenly release Yasin Malik Sahab? No, they are all the same. Some are more rigid. Some are slightly flexible. All of them are the same. But the point is, we got to have a proper Kashmir policy, and we ought to take our case properly to the United Nations. There is a body within the United Nations on rape. Have we taken the case of the women who have been raped in Kashmir to that?
All issues have been raised by Pakistani authorities a number of times over there.
We haven't taken our case in this manner to any international court. Why can't
Commission of Inquiry? We need to take it there.
And why can't we take it to ICJ? Why when the Indians took it, we invited Kulbhushan's family to meet Kulbhushan Yadav. Why can't we do it on her behalf? These are issues. Instead of saying that Modi is the butcher, he's a rascal. He will do anything. He will kill his own people. He is not bothered. He doesn't have children of his own. He cares two hoots for anybody's children. He is a bloodthirsty.
So Dr. Amna, Mehmood, taking such type of cases to International Court of Justice, your take regarding that?
I think 2 points, very important. Mushaal has already pointed out, and Dr. Tughral Sahab, I support that. One, that we have a systematic policy. We do have only reactive policy. Whenever there incidents come, we react and we make hue and cry for a certain time. Then we speak in the UNGA, and then we make our case, and then we keep silence. And still, it is not clear. I have seen the statement of State Minister of Foreign Affairs, and she said that this was the policy of last government. It is not the policy of present government, as Mr. Tughral was pointing out. So we should be clear what is our policy, and we have to stuck that. You are very right that political games are there, political point scoring is there, political conflicts are there within the country. But nations who survive are agreed on national interest, national agenda. They should continue on that. You know, same was the case with Congress and RSS and BJP, but they were having single point agenda towards Kashmir, all of them. You know, always. We knew about the Nehru's pragmatism, but that was not in case of Kashmir, and that was not in case of Pakistan, but that was for the rest of the world. Similarly, BJP followed the same policy because they are one on national interest. So we have to decide what is our national interest and what are the political interests. On political interests, you are free to leg pulling and everything, but on national interest, we should be on one point agenda, and we should be We should not say that this is my party's point of view. Any prime minister is not entitled to say that this is my party's point of view, that it is my party's policy. It is the policy of Pakistan. And Kashmir is the part of Pakistan. That is our stated goal. And that should be practically implemented. And the second point, that we have number of forums where we can take such matters. And if you want to take some relief from this movie, that can be taken to ICJ or many other forums, as Dr. Tughral pointed out, as Mushaal pointed out. We should go immediately, but we waste time and we test the memory of the world. That is very short. We should take care right now, because BBC is an accredited organization that is having a strong say all over the world. That is an independent, and we should engage that. We should go to international bodies. Why can't we go?
Now, Ms. Malik, when we talk about crushing the freedom of expression and opinion over there and stifling criticism when it comes to Modi's direct responsibility in the Gujarat riots, so does it mean that India is also trying to act as a hegemon in the digital domain also, when it is trying to block the sharing of the clips on various social media platforms also?
Yes, there's a complete blanket ban on any kind of information against the state policy, against the RSS ideology. And as I mentioned earlier, the Godi media. So I think there's complete intolerance, and the hawks are all, they're glued together, and all the peaceniks or the doves or the liberals, you could say, they're all scattered, or they're scared that they might be charged with sedition, their homes might be targeted, their families might be threatened. But then this violation that's going on over there, as I mentioned, that if we take it under universal jurisdiction, we have many reports which you can take to the International Criminal Court, for instance, for war crimes against Indian forces, and file cases to prosecute them. And then we have a lot of forensic evidence, videographic evidences. We have a lot of detailed media reports and international press clippings that can further, strengthen the case of individual families. And then we have divided families in Azad Kashmir over here. They can collectively, and the Kashmiri diaspora all over the world, and all those families, divided families that left Jammu in 1947, living in Pakistan, Azad Kashmir or abroad, a joint petition can be filed by them. I have discussed it with lawyers over here and abroad. A joint petition challenging what India has done by snatching their statehood, and take that matter to the International Court of Justice, that they should be reviewed, and their right, the statehood should be returned, and they should be given back their property rights, their right to ownership. And what's happening right now, we've seen how colonies, how farm lands are being allotted to non-Kashmiris. 50 lakh Indians have been given that. Economic, political, social, religious rights, everything is being taken away. And the recent case of my husband or of other Kashmiri political prisoners, where we've seen complete black justice, we've seen a blatant violation of international covenants on civil and political liberties, conventions against torture, disappearances, and other inhuman, cruel acts. We have seen that not even the standard minimum requirement of rights of prisoners, according to the Geneva Conventions, where India as a signatory, have been given to Yasin or the others. And especially in the case of my husband, which is one of the rarest cases in the world, because I've been Googling, I've been searching other political prisoners like Nelson Mandela, Yasser Arafat, and other Che Guevara, and all those freedom fighters, that at least they were given, if the state had decided to punish them, they were given that chance to be present before the court to speak up in their defense or have a counsel. And here you see a man in a death cell who is not allowed even on video conference, and if he speaks, he's muted by the judge, and then if he's presented in the court, he's presented only when the decision has to be filed against him. And he went on a hunger strike to death a few months back, just to be presented physically in Jammu courts. And then we had 3 production warrants being issued by Jammu court, but yet the CBI and the Indian government said we cannot present him because they're physically torturing my husband. Right now, his left arm got burnt because they gave him boiling water to do his wuzu. it burnt, and now he has all these, this infection over there, this pus everywhere. And that is one of the major reasons why they're not presenting him physically, because if he comes there for cross-examination, it will be exposed before the world. And when he's presented online, he's fragile, he's weak, they can do anything with him or the others. So these are cases where we can strongly take individual family issues and follow the Palestinian path, how they have a gold standard in the International Court of Justice. They have a lot of international law experts, the Palestinian human rights activists, that try to focus more on this to expose the Zionist policies. Yet we do not have a team of international law experts as yet, which is a tragedy.
Ms. Mushaal Hussain Malik, Chairperson, Peace and Culture Organization, by the imprisoned Kashmiri leader Mohammed Yasin Malik, the way you describe the condition he is in over there in the notorious Tehami jail,
Yes.
and he's not being given the right, the basic right of a free trial also, and cross-examining the witness, being in person over there before the judge. The world needs to take notice of this, and as you already mentioned, all the panelists agree that Pakistan needs to form a proactive policy regarding taking all these cases to any international forum that includes the International Court of Justice. Thank you very much for your time, for being with us on Views on News tonight. Dr. Tughral, Yamin, thank you very much for your time also. And Dr. Amna, Mehmood, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. With this, we come to the end of today's show. Until the next one, take good care of yourselves.